We have okay, we're recording. We haven't talked for a little while, so glad to get back with you. We'll give you a little bit of status, and then we got grant management to show you. Um, we spent a week together, uh, development teams, and then later the BAs with state SMEs. So that was last week, which helped a lot for us to get rolling a little bit farther along with requirements. And also, we had uh, going on right now is the second week of 26, sprint 26. This is a 3 week sprint. Normally, we're 2 weeks. We did a 1 week sprint a couple weeks ago because we had to get together last week. And so then we jumped into a 3 week sprint, a development sprint, and we're in the second week of it. We're doing a lot of work on navigation application record, universal career plan, negotiated goals. I see a lot of work there. Some updates in the ETPL, and then we're doing a lot of ETPL training program definition, workflow on that. We'll probably show you that next week, but we're going to jump through and do some grant management today, and I'll show you that. We're continuing discovery in a big way. We have spent a lot of time with our state subject matter experts, and we're going to spend a lot of more focused time with them over the next several weeks, which will help out a lot. We're uh, hoping to get through a lot of the customer intake and profile. We're doing some case notes, expand intake to incorporate WHEEL, which is the applications, assessments, services, career plan, entity management training program. Getting close. That's getting close. And then grant management should be wrapping up. That's why I'm going to show it to you. Hopefully, you guys won't have a lot of gotchas for me, but we are getting close on that. Um, since we haven't been together, have you got any questions on what's going on um, out there in our development and discovery tracks at all? Or look, let me see if there's any in here. Scott, does it look like it? All right, I'm going to go forward. I don't think this will take the full time. It may though. Depends on how much. So just kind of maybe I don't know, a show of hands or something, or you can even speak out. How many of you that are on the call right now deal with grant management configuration? Okay, so this is grant management. If you remember, Dan, okay, good. Let me take a look here, pull the chat up and see if anybody else. Um, okay, so I'm glad we got somebody. So if you deal with this, then you know that you got to do some things at least on an annual basis because we report registrants um, against estimate numbers for grants. We have grant numbers in the system. Grant numbers are tied to services. Today, you select those. We probably won't be selecting those in the future. We'll be able to set those for you, but we are we're slimming down the grant management part of this, trying to get less work involved and stuff like that. Um, so that's what I'm going to show you today. Looks like Rory, you got a little bit of experience with that. I think maybe some of you actually may have more knowledge of it than you think you do, but that's okay. If you don't feel like you ever touch it or you ever have any input, if you want to leave, that's okay too, because that's the only thing we have on our list today is grant management. So um, I'm going to go right to the document. Um, there are, I want to take you through a few of these rules first before I get into the screens and workflow and stuff, because I think it's important since you haven't heard any about this. Um, there's a few of these. As you know, if you are familiar with this, grant numbers, today there's a parent grant number. It's got the program year, it's got the program number, it's a 3-digit number, and then a program, a parent grant number has 000, meaning no LWIA, but the local grants have the LWIA designation at the end. So we're not going to get really rid of this, but we are getting rid of parents. And we don't have to have parents anymore, even though DCO, most likely someone at DCO will set up the grants. Um, I think that'll be still the same before they come over to the LWIA and before they add their information to them. Those will be set up. Those get set up most likely towards the end, probably June, May, June timeframe. And then we have to think about what services are assigned to that grant, what participants are registrants, however you want to call them, have services assigned to that grant that aren't closed, right? That are still open and will remain open and have to be rolled and transferred over to the new grant. Okay. So that's one big difference is there's not going to be a parent grant. It didn't really matter, I don't think, to anybody that was managing grants that that parent was there because you also got a grant underneath that created, but the LWIA does not have to create those grants at all. They'll just get a chance to look at them and put their registrant budgets to them. Okay, these are the areas that grants can be set up for. Okay, and then be probably others in the future. Um, Today, there's no ability to change the funding start date or funding end date on a grant. We're going to have that capability in the future. Um, Today, there's the parent grant shows high level budget numbers, and then we're talking about financial numbers, and it also shows, and then the local numbers show budget numbers. We're going to do away with budget numbers in IWDS 2.0. You don't have to deal with that anymore because IWDS 2.0 is not the system of record for those budget numbers. We are not going to get rid of registrant estimates. We'll talk about that a little bit. The program number is assigned by financial, so it still will be. So we will have to allow our DCO grant administrator to enter that and set those up, and I'll show you how that works. Today, there's a big Excel workbook for grant budgets. That's going to remain, but it's going to remain outside of the system. There don't have to be, those numbers are entered into IWDS today from that spreadsheet, but we're not going to do that anymore. Let me see what else here. Grant administrator adds grant draft. Okay, today the grant administrator adds a grant draft and completes required fields, including the budget. I think all of the budgets are set up already beforehand, but not the registrant numbers. We don't need any need for that. Once the DCO grant administrator sets up all the local grant numbers, then those are in a draft state, and then the um, local administrator can update those and submit those, and that puts them into a pending state. And then they'll be reviewed by the DCO grant administrator. If they need updates, they'll go in review needing update status. Otherwise, they're approved. If there's another grant by the same number, exact same number, like we have an active one that we're editing or something like that, then we create a new draft one, just like you do today, and we take that through the workflow process. And once it's through the workflow process, then those numbers There's only one new one. That's the new approved one. Okay. That's what I just said there. Grants will still have an incumbent worker switch. That incumbent worker, that's all handed over in IWTS. We are gonna, I think we are gonna bring back that IWTS expended number and compare it and make it available over um, in IWDS 2.0. But incumbent workers aren't handled in IWDS. So okay, this contact, you had a contact on the LWIA grants. Was optionally selectable. We're getting rid of that. Nobody's using it. The transfer process is going to be different, but we still have to do some transfers, and I'll show you how that works. Today, when adding a service, I talked about this a little bit earlier. When we add a service today, you have to select the grant, but most of the time there's only one grant in that dropdown. We should be able to figure out what that grant is. So we don't have to do that. You don't have to do that anymore. We're not going to have, there's projects today on grants. We're going to get rid of those. They're not being used. There's initiatives on grants. We're going to get rid of those. They're not being used. There's a regional attribute on grants. So there's a region you could select on a grant. We're not using those either. We're getting rid of those. We're not getting rid of the registration counts. There's modification numbers tracked for a grant. You're not going to see those anymore because we keep a full auditing trail, and we'll be able to, if somebody requests the auditing trail, we can give that. I don't know if it's going to be upfront and visible, but it is available. Okay. All right. So I wanted to go through that to kind of explain that so that in this section right here is just the data that we keep on grants. And I want to get down here to show you kind of what this looks like. Okay. So we have, I'm not sure how many screens there are today, but there is a reduction and we're getting down to these 5. Okay. There's going to be a grant listing page, which is kind of the landing page of grant management. So off the main menu, underneath the management tools, if you have the role, you will go to you will see a item in that menu that says grant management. Okay. When you go to that, you'll go to a very familiar format that we're doing for almost everything, which is a listing page with a listing panel on the right and a filtering capability on the left. Okay. From that screen, you'll be able to go to grant detail. You select one of them. I'll show you that. You always go to detailed first, which is a view only. And then if we need to get into the grant edit, we can go into grant edit. Okay. Also from the view, if and when we need to transfer, we will be able to go to grant transfer screen. And then of course, if you're on the grant management and you are like a DCO grant management coordinator, and there's a few others that we talked about yesterday, there'll be an add grants screen that you can go to set up grants. And this screen sets up multiple grants if need be for multiple LWIAs. Okay. Here is, and I'll try to zoom this in a little bit more. Max. Okay. This is, so off this management tools, if you can see this, there'll be an item that says grant management, and you'll get to this. The left side is the familiar filter. This particular filter for grants is you can enter a keyword, which will search on the grant name or the grant number. So you'll be able to type in a grant number if you wanted to. I did program year, and then the program type, or may just say program, but this one here is a formula grant for adult dislocated work on youth, but you could have a lot of options there. Status, what if you wanted just pending status ones or you want draft status ones, and then LWIA. If you are associated with an LWIA, which you folks will be, that will default to your LWIA. So you will see your grants for you. You don't have to see for everybody else that way. Okay, so all these fields are what we would call logically and together. In other words, as you put them in, they're not or. So if you put in a program here and I put in um, Lake County or Lake, then it would probably pull up these three here. And if I put in, so that both situations, okay, if I put in, I think these are all 24. If I put in no 24 in the name, it just pull all the, Lake County ones. If I put in Lake, or if I put in any of this information, it's all together. It works together. And I think you guys are aware of that on other things. On the right side, of course, you see the grant, the LWIA, the grant number. Obviously, it's there too, but grant number, LWIA, grant name. We're going to do a little bit more with the grant name than just the LWIA name in the future. Program year, the program or programs that's in that, and then the status. Okay. This is your add grant button. This is the column organizer, which allows you to select and organize columns. This is an export button. So this should be really familiar with you. Like entity management works this way, customer works this way, application works this way. There's a lot of things that work this way. At the bottom, you always have the pagination capability. You're looking at the page 1 here. My particular filter criteria brought back 38 entries. Since there's 50 available on the screen, they're all showing. If this was set to 10, then I'd have four screens. Three screens of 10 and then one screen of 8. Obviously, this is the first page, last page, and then there's like, if you have the situation I just told you and you had more than one page, then you would see, I think, 3 or 4 pages here. So that's the landing page. Before I go on, do you have any questions about this page or what the heck I'm talking about?
It looks like there are a few questions in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Yep. They'll have, according to the program, I understand that most of them are pretty static, so to speak, 381, 350, or 681, 651, those kinds of things. We're going to use the same format and the same familiar way to do that. Yep. Um, Fill me in, Rory, on the IWT. Maybe you're using terminology that I know or don't
No,
know.
I think you answered it. I was starting to type it actually right as you were showing in that Word doc where you were showing the current system and then the new system. So it was just incumbent worker training.
Oh, yes,
Like
yes,
there will be
yes.
some interface, but that's not
Yeah,
going to be assumed, if, whatever the term would be. That's not going to like get brought under the new IWDS 2.0. That's still going to be its own
yeah.
system.
How you use those, I believe, is over there, but the grants you have over here, have the incumbent worker capability. You can actually use WEO grant. I think the way you say that is you can use WEO grant money for non-WEO in some grants, non-WEO eligibles, I think, or something like that. But
Right.
anyway, you know more about the IWTS or the IWTS system, but we are going to make sure we still track that grant, specific grant over here in IWS 2.0 allows incumbent worker, and we are going to I think we're going to bring back a actual budget number that's back into this. I just don't exactly have that yet. I don't know exactly where we're putting that, but to see, because you might want to know if you're getting close to using what you accounted for. Like we did take out all the numbers, except you're still going to need a budget number for incumbent workers, and you're going to probably want to know how close you're getting to that limit. So
Mhm.
we'll have those two numbers still. I got to get that back in here. In fact, I'm going to write that down before I forget it again. Okay. Yep. Okay. Um, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I think what grants do you add at who is this, Robert? What grants do you add at the LWIA that aren't under a parent grant?
That was more of a question. I was just wondering, would that stop? Because we haven't added a grant in some years without y'all approval first. So I was just wondering, would it be there? But when I look at your screen there, I see where it says add grant. So I do see that it's there for us to use if we have to.
Right.
So
So we
yeah,
may there when you say that there may be we had some discussion about that. There may be some grants, non-WIO grants, stuff like that, that may fall into the hands of uh
look to us,
non-DCO to create
right,
them. But yesterday they kind of talked, and maybe Laura's on here, they kind of talked like DCO adds all those, but I don't know. You said you haven't added any for a while, so that may still stand that way. But this is for the DCO. Like, if you don't have a role to add grants, you wouldn't see that button. But
right. I,
I
I
just got the
have
whole
it.
thing there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I remember when you said it right. In case we want to put it in there, just to show that we have it, but how important it would be on you guys and to see if we have a grant that we wanted to
Yeah.
just have in there.
So we'll this system will be capable of allowing anybody that has a role to add a grant still. But most of the time, I would say, well, most of the time anyway, your grant will be added already for you, and you'll go into a draft grant to edit it and then
Right.
submit it. Okay. All right. So this is that page. We're going to go on to our next page. This describes exactly what that page is. Um, Detail view. So this is kind of a long page. So I wanted to give you kind of a layout so you kind of understand it, because I do cut this off. So there's a menu, uh, obviously always. Then there's a grant view title bar underneath that. That's pretty obvious. There's a details section, which gives you the information about what grant it is. There's a log section for notes. You'll see that that's a little different than today. And then you'll see the registrant estimates right on that at the bottom. And we're going to do this registrant estimates section, kind of report based, where it has the estimates versus the year-to-date actuals and the percentage of anytime you go in to look at a grant. Okay, so we'll talk about this section here and this section here in a minute. I don't want to talk about that yet, but um, these two buttons, just I will say, will not be there if this is an active grant. This is to help us get through the workflow process. And this down here will be how we transfer. I don't know exactly if that's going to show all the time or not, but it may. Okay. Um, so the top, like I said, is a grant detail. Oh, up above, you always have the grant number here and the LWIA over there. Down here, you have the grant name, the program or programs. These will end up being divided. They won't be in commas like this. We're going to give you a line for each program, like these formula grants here all together. But if it's a 1E, they'll just say 1E. But even though they're together, they're going to be on their own lines. That was requested yesterday. And so when we get a chance, we'll put that in. And this is the incumbent worker. So this is a view only mode. That's why it just says, hey, there's an incumbent worker. Tells when it was created on and created by. It tells the last update and the last update by. This may or may not be matching this. Over here is the program year, the funding start date, the funding end date, this is the last WIA updated on and the last. So we do track this and keep this going. This could be, if we just set this to pending or submitted it, this may be matching this until the DCO approver approves that grant, and then it probably will change. Okay, the center section is a communication area. Today, there's just one note block on a grant. This is a little bit more flexibility, may or may not be used. It can expand and contract inside of a row. Like this little caret here is expanded. So it's saying if you touch this, it'll go back up. It'll always show the first line of a note. Notes are not editable. You can just add them. Tells who added it. And it also tells the status at the time that note was added. I think there's been a request to stack these in reverse order, so they will come out in reverse. So the latest note will be at the top. So on this display, but you can sort these by these 3 fields. Okay, doesn't do much good to sort it by that. So that's the way that's going to be. It could only be, we are going to put a note in there that says initial creation, but there may or may not be any other notes in there. Okay. There's not mandatory to put notes in there, and it's just a way to communicate if you do have. Now, when we initially create, so like if Josh initially creates the grants, then you'll get somebody will get a notification that this grant's been created, and you need to go in and pull you back into the system to say you need to edit it. This has all that, like for the formula grants, there's several numbers here. I don't show them here, all of them, but you guys are very familiar with this. This is that registrant entry page, but this is just going to be display only here in this mode. Not the actual entry. And this is going to show at any time you come into this grant. So if you come in, if you came into 24-681-007, then you would see where you're at with your registrant estimate to actual for each one of these. These are random, of course. And then the percentage of the estimate budget to actual. So that's what that is. And it'll show all those numbers. There's adult, dislocated worker, and youth, and they all have similar but not the same subcategories. Okay, those come off the budget sheet. Those are actually just about all you have to edit it now. It's just those registrant numbers. And then we're going to probably have, like I said, that incumbent budget somewhere. Okay. All right, that's the top section as it is explained, the middle section, and then, notes. When you add a note, you get this little pop-up. You put the note in, save it, and it comes back and gives you another line. This is a little bit more, but this is that sheet where we're going to display. And we're not going to display the numbers like you gather them, because you have the numbers like in quarters and the year to date or the year end. I think you're 4 quarters, maybe just 4 quarters. And then, but this particular details page will show it this way. Okay. Edit grant. There's not too much to edit here. Obviously, we can't change the grant number, the program year. That would make sense. We just have to add a new grant if those 2 things were wrong. Can't change the programs. That would be a new grant, but we can change this grant name. I'll show you what we're going to do here is we're going to when we create these grants, even though this can be changed, we're automatically going to put the grant or the LWIA name in there, but we're going to suffix that with the program identifier, like 1A, 1Y, 1D, 1E, whatever the program identifier is. We're going to suffix that, so it's not just the LWIA name, because that doesn't provide much value. If it's just the LWIA name, we wouldn't even have it. There's the funding start date, funding end date, and the proper role is going to be able to edit these. There's the incumbent worker switch. So this is the edit, not the add. This is the edit grant. Have the same here, and then of course your entry, you'll be able to enter down here those numbers. This setup, this selecting the registrant numbers will be different, sometimes different according to what grant it is. So the system will know what they're collecting. Like I think there's some other stuff that you collect, not just registrant numbers. There might be they're gonna run that down for me. But I think there's stuff like maybe outreach sessions or something that you're gonna hold. Other grants have a few other tracking numbers, and that'll all be set up for you beforehand. So you don't have to go put it in any other spreadsheet. You don't have to put it in a PDF document. You'll just be able to enter it according to what grant type it is. Let me look, because I bet you there's some questions about that. Yeah, the transfer button we'll get to next. It's at last. So yeah, you don't have to go out and close those and reopen them or anything like that. You'll see exactly how to do that. Will the restaurant estimates display be accessible in a report? Yes, you'll still have several reports available. I've got those. I've been looking at those reports now. They're actually they're actually listed in the bottom of this document here, but I'll tackle those during the reports. There's no parent grant number anymore. You'll kind of see that on the add grant screen. There's no reason for it. The reason for a parent grant number was so there was some reporting that had to go off the parent grant number and the rolling up of numbers and stuff like that. But we can give all those reports without having a physical parent grant. There was no real use of it. Hope that answers that. Okay, so that let me get this out of the way again. That is the view and edit. Okay, we'll get to the transfer and the add. Next is add. So what happens is, let's say I'm assuming it's going to be like May or June of the ending of a program, I should say of the last year of a program of a grant, because some grants are 2 years long. So let's just say this was, so if the program year is 2024, this is probably like say May or June of 2024. Okay. And there's a few things. So this entry screen takes the place, so to speak. Let me zoom in a little bit of adding a parent grant. Okay. So you basically are going to select the year. The person's going to enter this information. So like, obviously if you select the year 24 will be in there, but they're going to enter this 681. And this is really the prefix because the last three are the LWIA. There's a suffix. When I said suffix, that means right here, any suffix could be added. So hopefully they'll standardize. It'll automatically come in here like this. So there's nothing that the person creating these has to do unless they want to change that suffix. Programs or program, they'll be selectable in a free hierarchy, so to speak, and you can select one or more depending on what it is. The funding start date's here, and the funding end date is here. Now, you notice there's no incumbent switch here because that's really at the local level. Okay, so when you edit a grant at the local level, you get to set that incumbent switch, so there's none here. So what happens is they come in here, they select this, they put in this 681 or 651 or whatever. This gets set they select this. These will probably be flipped so this can get set correctly. But anyway, those all get set, and then they select this generate grants button. And what it does is it creates this table down below. And you'll notice this table has one of these grants for every LWIA, automatically sets those up, every active LWIA, and it's already got them selected. So if Jeff is the person and he's creating the grants this year for the formula grants, then this goes in here and it's already checked. So it's just select, done, generate grants. That's all he has to do. Saves that, and then they go in to draft mode, and they're ready to be edited by the LWIA grant administrator. Okay. Let's see if we got anything. Does that make sense? I think everything's good there. So that's what probably DCO will do on most grants. Okay. All right, let me get down here. That explains that. Grant transfers. All right, let's talk about this. Okay. Remember, before I get to grant transfers, let me talk about the status stuff again. Get that off our list. So you don't, at the OWIA, you really don't have to worry about the status thing, because you're just going to save yours will be in draft mode, or that other status, which is like in review needing updates. Those two statuses really is all you'll be editing. And once you do that, you'll save it and it'll go into pending status, ready for review. But at the state level, they're going to either put, hit approved or not approved. And if it's not approved, it goes back into that other status, that needing updates. Okay, so that's basically the only time this comes up, and it comes up when we are in pending mode. Is when that comes up. Okay, pending approval mode. And that won't even probably come up for you. It'll only come up for DCO probably. So that's that. Underneath that, we have, and this is more important when we get down to June. Let's just say June is normally the time you probably need to do this, but it'll tell you basically what this is telling you, that there are 107 registrants that have services that are open, not closed, against this grant, right? So it tells you that, and this number should go down as you go closer to that date, but it may be, there's no significance there, because necessarily, because there could be a lot of open ones against that grant on the program year. The program year doesn't have a lot to do with services and training. So it'll tell you, okay? And you'll be able to just hit this transfer button, okay? And let's go all the way down here, the transfer page, and we'll take a look at that. When you hit that button, you will get to this page. And so you were already on a view mode of a grant, and you're saying, okay, I need to transfer these registrants off of this grant and on to the new program year grant. Okay. I think formula is automatic. So if I've got formula grants in here as an example, just ignore that. Don't get uptight about that. But non-formula grants are not automatic. Okay, so you have this screen here on the left side. So basically, when you come in, you'll see the grant information from the one you were on when you hit the transfer button. You'll see all those customers that have at least one open service tied to this grant. And then over here, this would all be blank when you first came in. And you would use this selection to select the appropriate grant. Now, the selection box is going to already be filtered Well, that's not true. That's not true. Nor that I said that, because there may be individuals that you have that may not necessarily go into the same program grant. Okay, so anyway, you select the destination grant, so to speak. And when you do that, this information about that will be pulled in. Obviously, they have to be created and they have to be active and ready for usage. Now, when this all happens, you're just kind of setting this up, because when this happens, it'll happen at the start of the new grant. Okay, the system will take care of that. It'll transfer the service over to the new grant automatically at that point in time. You don't have to worry about that. And I think they talked about there might be a grace period a little after the start of the next grant. They'll decide on that, how that's done. But whether you do it before or after, it'll make sure that that service is associated with this grant at that date when this one expires. Okay. Now, down here is a list, and it has the number of pages that you might have. I set this at 10, so which is wrong, but it could be 50, whatever. Same kind of deal with all your lists. And it has, when it first comes in and you select this, it'll always have these selected. Okay. So what this means is whenever you eventually hit save or save and continue, it'll move all those, but it won't necessarily move them right then. It'll probably never move them right then. It's just scheduling those to get moved at the end of this period. Okay. Or at the start of this period, however you want to look at it. Okay. Now, there's the last name, first name. This may or may not be here. I think we're going to start talking about an identification number. Okay. Using an identification number as opposed to this last four of SSN. Well, that's all discussion you guys have discussed before with Olivia and everybody. Zip code might be nice. Date of birth might be nice. If we find something else that we should put here to kind of identify that person, it also is going to have the date of the last service here. But this right here is a little eyeball. Think like, what is this? And we may not use this icon, but I'm just saying this is a little icon if you select it, there'll be a fold out come out here that gives you information about that particular person and the services. So I'm going to show you that right down here. Something like this. This is still mock-up. So I selected this view and this came out from the right side and it shows me the customer, maybe the address, the customer ID, as I was talking about, date of birth, the career planner, okay, that's associated with that customer, and then the customer email. And then underneath that, it shows the services. Okay, this is similar to that profile. If we need more space, we'll get a little more space there, but it shows the services. It shows which ones were completed, which ones are open, and when they were started. Okay. So that will be available too, just to make sure you know what's going to get transferred. And that's available on all these. Of course, you can close it here and close it there. But you can see if you're questioning, like, wait a minute, why is this? And what this allows you to do is to say basically, oh, that should have been that should have been closed, that service, right? It allows you to see more detail so that it might not be ready for transfer because it just may not be closed. You forgot to close it or somebody has not closed it. Okay. I know you're going to have questions on this or some thoughts on this. Grant transfer role is going to be at the LWIA, right? It's going to be now. This is a good question, Robert. I think it was Robert. Does the LWIA grant administrator know much about this? Not probably really. It's probably more of a career planner that knows more about it. So we may
Define
want to
that.
think.
Hold up, but define that when you say career planner, the career planner is working with the clients. I mean,
Yes.
they don't see this role. This is something that career advisor would not see. we normally used to do this transfer until it was told we don't need to do it no more. So we stopped doing this maybe 5, 6 years ago, and we just put them in those new grant. If this they continue needed service, we enroll them into the new grant there for any type of new payment or whatever service we may be doing with them.
You're going into each individual customer
Yeah, and
service, each
before,
individual
yeah,
customer service, and selecting the new grant, right?
correct, and that would used to have been
Yeah,
a long process, let me tell you, and DCO, you guys, well, they used to do it, so I would tell them, "Okay, I need this grant
right,
transfer over to this grant," and they would do it for me based
right.
and then they'll give me a list and back saying, "Okay, this is who we transfer." I would check maybe 5% of them just to make sure they're looking good and everything is okay, and then that was it. But I
So what
like
I'm
that.
thinking, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
What you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that a couple things. We're still going to have reporting around this, right? We're still going to have a report that we
Correct.
can that the career planner can say, "Hey, I want to see all my customers that have services that are
Yes.
against these grants." You know what I'm saying? And so
Yes.
you'll still the career planner will be able to grab that report. I could
Correct.
see several ways. Maybe one of them is they check them off that report and hand them to, or send it to whoever's doing this grant administration. If you wanted to keep this only as a grant administrator role, or
Well,
potentially we could filter
we
this.
probably,
Potentially we could filter this
yeah,
by
we
career
probably
planner.
will keep it that way because then we don't like a lot of people to have access. Next thing you know,
Exactly.
stuff get all crazy.
Right.
So
Right.
they would
So
not have that role. I mean, from our
right.
local area.
Right.
Um,
But you may
okay.
not know that they may not have that role, but you also may not know as a grant administrator, like, well, what about Kelly Boyle? I don't know much about this. Why it looks to me like if I look at this, maybe there was one open service, but maybe you look at it and say, that probably should be closed, you know, so that's why you may want to think about using a report or something and getting that over to whoever's going to have this screen.
Yes,
And
we do that.
you know
We
what I'm
do that.
saying? Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But this is all here. It already tells you exactly who needs to be transferred. It already sets it up, and you can just unselect them if you can. Now, here's the neat thing. If you don't, like you say, well, I don't want all these to go to that grant. Let's say there is a co-enrollment situation or something.
Okay.
Well, you could unselect some of those, and then hit the save and continue, and it'll stay here, and all the ones that were unselected will stay here, and all the ones that were selected will go off this report, and then it'll reset this, and you can select a different grant number. Okay, so you can work these off right here. You don't have to go somewhere else, or you don't have to go out to get back in. You don't have to do that because it'll just, as you go, if this save and continue will just keep bringing it down to whatever's left.
Okay,
Okay,
question
just
then. Question. If this grant is transferring it over and the service is not open to transfer into the new grant, if everything is closed, what is it being transferred into?
it's not gonna show up. If everything is closed, that customer will never be on here.
Okay, good. That's want to
It's
make clear.
only the customers. Yeah, in fact, this is probably way too many. I mean, it just showed an example, but it's just going to be those that only have open services on a grant that's expiring, right? So
Correct.
you'd have to have two scenarios. You'd have to have an open service on a grant, and a second is the grant has to be expiring. Yeah.
Yeah, because I closed off some grant and I got guess a few of them that I need to review with our management team to close them off by this week, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So that makes sense. Hopefully it'll make sense. Should be easier for everybody. We really slimmed down this grant stuff, took off a lot of that stuff. And I don't know how much of this was at the LWIA level, but there we just tried to get it so this is not the grant system. This is not the system of record for grants. We're just trying to tie registered numbers and services to grants, right? That's what we're trying to do. Make sure we have that so we can report that. We want to be able to report that everywhere. So, and we want to be able to monitor too. If you said, oh, we expected 10 people in that one category of that grant, and we have 50, we're going to say, whoa, okay, wait a minute, year to date we have 50 already. We thought it was going to be 10. What happened? Maybe it's dislocated worker, right? And had some huge layoff or something. I don't know. And you're like, whoa, okay, where's that coming from? Because ultimately, the number of registrants has to do with how big the pot is, right? How much money you have in there. So that's where but because the financial side of it's not IWDS, and it never has been really, there's no reason to capture, copy those numbers into here. The only thing we need to do is we are going to have to add this incumbent worker estimate and year to date. But other than that, we just have the registrants we're tracking. And then we get the transfer process. I was trying to get away from the transfer process like we do on formula grants, but we can't. And we know we have other grants too that we're going to have to transfer registrants on. So in the future, we'll probably have all kinds of scenarios. So we still got to have this capability. And that's it. We got a bunch of reports that I'm tracking to see down here to see, um, you know, these are all grant reports. I'm trying to see what's valid and what's good and what's working and how we can potentially consolidate some of those if we need to, and just for sure make sure they're in there. So you won't lose any reports because we have a couple of these screens here, but we want you to be able to get to this data pretty quick on a grant. And be able to set that up and get through the workflow process, all those kinds of things easily. So any other questions? I just want you to see this because I don't think I showed it to you yet. And we're getting ready to build this out.
Dan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions and comments or
Sure.
whatever. First is on grant transfer.
Yep.
There are situations where a grant has not been closed out, but participants need to be transferred over to another grant. I know it's far and few between, and so maybe we can't account for every situation. I mean, there have been times when I've
seen that.
I've sent email to Mark and say, hey, we're kind of out of money in this and we want to move case management for this to this, or I don't know, weird stuff. And
There
so
should be no problem with that if we have the rule of we transfer on this date, not necessarily this date, right? I know that sounds weird, but so this will work fine if we make sure that we're transferring these when you set them up to transfer, one or however many you're doing. You can do one person if you want it. It'll bring it over when this date's available, right? Because you got to have a grant that's available to transfer to.
yeah,
That's all. And you should be able to do that. Then you could pick another grant.
It may be like, okay, effective March 1st, we need to move blank or whatever, I don't know.
Right. Because you run out, you got to be, it could be March, it could be October, it could be whatever. Exactly. And so that shouldn't be a problem with this, as long as we do it when the funding start date is available.
I can see some merit where DCO grant manager approval for this to happen makes sense.
Yes.
I think it should be be able to be initiated by either local grant manager or whoever has that role, or state.
Yep.
But I think it makes sense to have approval by DCO to do it, or maybe I'm going overboard, but
no, okay. I will bring that up to them and see if see
what they think
necessary. Yeah, sure.
There's times where, because obviously this has an impact on all of a sudden now reports potentially show that somebody was enrolled in double counting and whatever. And there's legitimate reasons for transferring people. I get that. I love the fact that you can click on a person and see what the open activities are, because to be quite honest, we've had problems in the past where As an example, we had 2 Quest grants open at the same time.
Yep.
And we wanted to roll people over because all the Quest 1 money was gone, and we want to roll people over to Quest 2. And
Yep.
so we asked our career planners, hey, make sure all the services that are open are accurate before we have Mark flip people over for us, you know, and oh yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, we did that. Sure, yep, it's good. And it wasn't. So I love the fact
Right.
that this is there and that a supervisor could go and verify before the actual transfer was initiated, like, yeah, these are all good. Or, you know, it's just, I think it's a great double check. So I like that a lot. Getting off the grant transfer part.
Okay.
I did not see 1EC anymore in
Oh,
you
here.
had
Yeah.
comparisons. And
Let me go up here.
it's just I know that we are one of the local areas that still has trade grants, and 1EC was used to designate trade participants and services / costs that couldn't be charged to trade, as an example, childcare. And so we locally always knew, yeah, there were these 1E people, but then there were also these 1EC people, which are really trade co-enrolled people. And I don't know, maybe it won't be relevant anymore, or there's just so few instances where 1EC is a thing, or maybe we just
I think, but
care.
trade is also co-enrollment with dislocated worker, isn't it?
Yeah, but in
And
this
dislocated
case,
worker has that capability.
but in this case, like as an example of the childcare payment,
Yeah.
it would be charged to the 1E grant under 1EC. And I don't know, maybe there's a follow-up for state people.
Yeah. I mean, this is follow up because this is the ones we had. This is the ones they've whittled it down to right now.
Yeah,
Right now, I'm saying. And it's this group here under WIOA, TAA. So the federal ones, right, are the
Yep.
WIOA ones here, TAA, apprenticeship expansion, non-format, other federal workforce grants. Maybe this could fall under that. And then there's some state workforce grants that are open right now. So
just suggest
our
following.
programs, I should say. Yeah, maybe we'll just ask them and say, you know, how that was done before. What's the policy going to be to how you're going to do it in the future? Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if that's Crystal and Lorraine or somebody
Yeah.
else.
Okay.
Trades going away, you know, and so funding levels are dwindling rapidly. And so maybe it's just not even a thing worth programming at this point.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Oh, when they did the create grant thing at the state level,
Yeah.
and I think I heard you say this, but I just wanted to verify. It seems like only the formula grants would do that, from the parent grant down to every single LWIA, because a lot of them
Right.
are just going to be one-offs. And so I'm assuming you could do some business logic behind this thing. So 681 automatically does, you know, 1 through 22 or whatever. Whereas if you're picking 651 or anything else, it's just going to then ask you for a specific LWIA to a
Right. So right here, my today's answer, you just hit none, and then you'd find the one you want and select
Yeah.
it. That's all you do. I mean,
And that's
or
really
2
good
or 3. Yeah.
feedback. It's
Yeah.
for them
Yeah.
to kind of give feedback. I think I just
Yeah. That's good.
noticed
Yeah.
that.
No. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And as long
Okay.
as you have I don't think I saw the none. So as long as you have
Yeah.
the none, then you can quickly, it would just,
Yeah.
that kind of
Click.
suck if by mistake someone wasn't
Yeah.
really paying attention. All of a sudden they created 20
Right.
1E grants.
Now,
Pick your thing. So if there's maybe some double checks behind it for business
Yeah.
logic kind of stuff, that
Yeah.
seems good.
okay. Good. That's good point.
I had something else select grant, but I don't know what I can't read my writing, so we'll let it go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do
Anyone
like the
else?
fact that the budget crap doesn't have to be included anymore.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense that
Yeah.
it hasn't worked correctly in some cases for quite a while, so that's good.
All good? All right, appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure you guys got to see that. We're going to start building this very soon, and that'll be in UAT very soon to mess with it and play with it. So, anyone else, Taylor or Annette or Olivia, I'm not sure who's on right now. If you got anything else, if not, I will stop here, and I don't